Since the start of late 1970s, weird shapes started appearing in the fields of crops around southern England that started raising eyebrows of the farmers. These shapes would almost always appear on the fields of cereals and were popular in Wiltshire. They would mysteriously appear overnight, with no signs of human interference and no clear culprit to hold accountable. Most suspicious of all was the fact that the plants within these shapes appeared bent, not broken, leading many to believe they were crafted by some supernatural force unseen by human eyes. When the news of this event flooded the global space, it made headlines pushing multiple instances of investigation, hoping to unravel the culprit behind it. What began as a few isolated incidents soon exploded into a global phenomenon, with around 10,000 reported cases worldwide by 2001, leaving the world questioning where mystery ended and reality began. After the phenomenon gained global traction, Colin Andrews coined the term crop circle to identify it. Since no one took the credit and there was no visible proof of human touch, it was automatically attributed to extraordinary, especially the UFOs. What supported the blame on the UFOs was the fact that during the 1960s there were multiple reports of UFO sightings and circular formations in swamp reeds and sugarcane fields in Australia and Canada. The most famous case is the 1966 Tully saucer nest incident, when a farmer said he witnessed a saucer-shaped craft rise from a swamp and fly away. Upon investigation, he found a nearly circular area, where the grass was flattened in clockwise curves to water level within the circle, and the reeds had been uprooted from the mud. The incident was reported and investigation was carried out, but local police officer and the University of Queensland collectively concluded that it was most probably caused by natural causes. The legend of Tully's saucer was laid to rest, but it gave rise to a surge of ufologists in Wiltshire ready to investigate the next sighting. In a matter of few years, the rumors of the saucer nest appearing in new areas started skyrocketing. Despite the crop circles at the time being an unexplained anomaly, it had enough influence to be featured in the movie Phase 4, which was a science fiction movie depicting the crop circle being built by superintelligent insects. The search for answer led the researchers to look down the history, where they found a 17th century English woodcut called the Mowing Devil. It depicted the devil with a scythe mowing a circular design in a field of oats. The story behind the pamphlet states that the farmer, who was disgusted at the wage demanded by his mower, insisted that he would rather have the devil himself perform the task. While relatable, this wasn't considered to be a historical precedent for crop circles because the stalks were cut down, not bent. Since no proper explanation was obtained which addressed the complex circle, humanity had an international piece of puzzle until it was solved by two British pranksters. Before 1991, people were under the assumption that these crop circles were made by UFOs and extraterrestrials, but that changed when British pranksters Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley claimed that they started creating crop circles in British cornfields after being inspired by the Tully saucer nest case. The weird thing about the crop circle was that the plants were bent in a way that would be impossible to replicate with human efforts. And even if they somehow did it, there would be a visible human track in the fields like you see on the photos here, but some of the original crop circles didn't have any of them. This marked the start of a relentless game of cat and mouse, as passionate researchers, government officials, and even military forces joined the pursuit. A biophysicist, William Levengood, started analyzing plants found in the crop circle and made remarkable discovery. The apical nodes of the plant found in crop circles were elongated and ruptured in contrast to normal plant. The only way to replicate this was with the application of microbursts of radiation, something similar to your microwave. When radiation heats up the water in the nodes of plant, they burst open like popcorn, which would be impossible to fake with human efforts, at least not without some evidence of tampering with fire or other sources of heat. What supported this claim was the fact that people had seen steam coming off of the area before a crop circle appears, and when researchers went inside the crop circles, they showed signs of radiation. Even the seeds in the area with crop circle had higher growth and increased protein in comparison to normal seeds. Also, when those two pranksters in their 60s were asked about how they made those crop circles with little to no foot tracks, their answer was pole vaulting. Not to underestimate them, but considering their age and general fitness at that moment, it's difficult to believe that they were able to pole vault in such a clean manner. If observed closely, their pattern wasn't that clean to begin with, and while they did make decent-looking patterns, they were unable to replicate the elegantly bent branches of crop that still had seeds intact on them. To address these crop circles, a new field of study was invented with the name cereology. Cereologists would be responsible for investigating these crop circles and share their findings with each other, making a small but strong community. Hoping to capture the crop formation in camera, Operation Blackbird was launched with the assistance of prominent crop circle researchers like Andrew Collins and Pat Delgado. The operation was blessed with multitude of resources, and the field itself was owned by the Ministry of Defense, which sounds a bit counterintuitive because the whole concept of crop circle was that it appeared on random place and time, but it allowed them to rig every inch of the potential area with camera and surveillance device. It was a huge event as finally the government was lending a hand to perform a joint operation with public, and it was aired on television, so millions were watching it from all over the world. Nothing out of the ordinary happened on the first day, but on the second day, a crop circle appeared. Collins and other researchers enthusiastically talked on the television about finally capturing the crop circle on camera, but everything came crumbling down as they went into the field. The circle was fake, and in the middle was an astrology board game, which became a huge embarrassment for the researchers, discrediting them and their research works. Adding fuel to the fire, Doug and Chorley, who claimed responsibility for the crop circles, demonstrated their technique in broad daylight for the entire world to witness using nothing more than a wooden board and a cap attachment. They weren't perfect by any means, but it gave rise to hundreds of copycats with complex design and precision all over the world. To put the final nail in coffin, a crop circle making competition was held on the night of the 11th and the 12th of July in 1992, with a grand prize of £3,000. Teams eager to participate had to apply in advance and were provided with guidelines for a standard formation. Each competitor was required to recreate this design as specified by a panel of crop circle experts. To give everyone a fair chance of winning, design and general guidance notes for competitors were sent to all of the participants 3 weeks before the actual contest, so they had time to plan their strategy, and the location of the contest was informed only 48 hours before the event. Competing teams were allowed to work on their plots under cover of darkness between 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. During this time, members of the organizing group patrolled the area to ensure no one sabotaged other teams' plots, whether contestants or outsiders. The work had to be done by 3 in darkness, with only the light of the moon to assist, with additional points awarded for not being seen. After the completion of the creation phase, a helicopter was arranged to fly over the field soon after dawn to take aerial photographs of the site. The team that secured the victory consisted of 3 young engineers from the Westland Helicopter Company, but before being presented with a check for £3,000, they had to make the formation again in broad daylight so that everyone could see how it was done. This was monumental, as suddenly the concept of crop circle being made by aliens became a dumpster fire. Although farmers expressed concern at the damage caused to their crops, response to the appearance of crop circles was often enthusiastic, with locals taking advantage of the increase of tourism and visits from crop circle researchers. The market for crop circle consequently generated helicopter tours of circle sites and merchandise sales. In between all the chaos, a sketch of a spaceship creating crop circles was sent to UK Ministry of Defence in 1998. It didn't gain much traction, but videos of white orbs orbiting the area around crop circle formation started to become popular. Some believed that sitting inside a crop circle could heal cancer, while pregnant women were warned to stay away.
I've heard of a couple of instances of people that have had cancer that have gone into crop circles and then had the cancer go into remission.
The bell started ringing when, instead of ignoring, the British government started sending helicopters to latest crop circle sites. A question appeared on people's mind, which gave a different perspective to the crop circles. If crop circles were really fake and man-made, why is the government monitoring the latest sites? The answer was pretty easy. Maybe there really was more to crop circles than what met the eye. The assumption didn't disappoint, as after few years, it came to light that the pranksters duo were paid for their public stunt, but sadly they had to sue for the full payment. Although a few credible studies were conducted by scientists like Levengood, overwhelming number of evidence pointed to crop circles being nothing more than a hoax. During the early 1990s, meteorologist and physicist Terence Meaden proposed a theory suggesting that crop circles were created by whirlwinds with their paths shaped by the hills of southern England. But as circles became more complex, Terence had to create increasingly complex theories, going as far as blaming a plasma vortex. Further tarnishing their credibility, researchers observed that crop circles in the UK in 2002 were not randomly scattered across the landscape. They consistently showed up near roadways in moderately to densely populated regions, and around historical landmarks like Stonehenge or Avebury. This strongly implies that the creation of these crop circles is more likely the result of deliberate human activity rather than any paranormal phenomena. And when the hype of crop circles started to boil down, the appearance of them slowed down as well. There were also the so-called ghost circles, which were faint imprints of crop circles that lingered in the field for years. But the whole phenomenon had grown so stale that most people simply stopped caring. In 2002, Discovery Channel commissioned 5 graduate students from MIT's Aeronautics and Astronautics program to create their own crop circles. The goal was to replicate the specific features that supposedly set real crop circles apart from the known fakes created by figures like Bauer and Chorley. The students were to replicate not only the common features like smooth flowing pattern or popcorn nodes, but also the hint of radiation and scattered filing of metal. As you would expect, the students did a lot of research to dig every details about crop circle and prepared to make one. They used night vision goggles and GPS for their accuracy and used radiation generating equipment to recreate the puffed nodes. The real crop circles had magnetic glaze, which is a term referring to the spheres of metal stuck to the plant. To duplicate this effect, they attempted to use a pyrotechnic device that was only used once before. The crop circle was made by the students, and preparations were made to strictly examine them. As the helicopter used for aerial view got closer to the circle, it lost power. Upon thorough inspection and analysis of the crop circle, the researchers gave it a grade of A-.
100% across the board, but I'd give an A-. I think that the size of this crop circle...
Given that this was their first attempt at creating crop circles, it's clear that humans can produce remarkably similar designs. Although crop circles worldwide haven't been studied as extensively as those in the UK and US, the evidence strongly suggests that the vast majority, if not all, were most likely created by humans. All in all, most of the crop circles were deemed fake, with few unexplained ones that puzzled many. There were multiple interesting stories that involved intelligence organizations like CIA, MI5, and also the relation of crop circle to mathematics, but the interest in crop circle had peaked in the early 2000s. What started as an unexplained anomaly later turned into a work of art, where people started business of making crop circle to attract tourists, with the most prominent one being the Olympic ring that was visible during the 2012 Olympics. With the most recent occurrence of crop circle being the one in Wiltshire that was observed on August of 2024, it's safe to assume that the formation of crop circle has dialed down a lot, and is far from the message of alien, which was once believed by many.